Derby County have been credited with interest for a player by the name of Ralphu Dumazzini, and it is going to be very, very interesting to see what does happen with this potential move. Now, Derby County aren't the only club interested. Huddersfield Town, Hull City and Oxford United have also been credited with an interest in the forward, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this is going to shake out. Now, according to the report from Football League World, he is valued at around £5.7 million as of right now. And obviously for Derby County, that would be a huge outlay on a striker, which, to be quite honest, I don't necessarily think they need. Now, we're going to dive into all of that in this video. So if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. This is the Derby Digest, so let's get into it. Now, I'm not going to turn around and say I know a great deal about this player. I'm not going to claim to at all, and it's very similar to the situation with that of Patrick Agyemang, where it's a player who sort of popped up necessarily from the radar of, we don't really know who you are, we don't really know how much of an impact you're going to have. And the big thing about this deal is I'm led to believe that he's on the back of recovery from an ACL injury, which is obviously not quite what you want to see as a Derby County fan. Now, let's not beat around the bush here. We don't want another player who has a huge sort of injury setback. Now, the positive about this move, and one which sort of opens my eyes up to this sort of situation, is that his contract expires in the summer. He's 22 years of age and he's playing for Victoria Pleasant. Is it a deal that we have to get done in January? I personally don't think so. Now, obviously, when we look at his numbers across the course of senior football, are they great? They're certainly heading in the right direction, don't get me wrong. Over the course of his senior appearances for Victoria Pleasant, he's played 80 games, 33 goals, 10 assists, which is essentially a goal contribution every other game. He then made 39 appearances for Cavanagh, scored 10, got 6 assists in 39. He's mainly a centre forward who can play anywhere across the front three. And this is sort of, it's a difficult one to look at really for me, because yes, I know that the value works out at around £5.7 million, but is it a deal which Derby County really want to get done? Now, I am going to be quite honest with you, I don't really know. I think when we look at this deal, you look at Derby County's current striking options, you've got Patrick Agyemang, you've got Ryan Brewster, you've got Andreas Weimann, Bobby Clark can play in that front three. Like, there's so many options in that sort of forward line for me, and I don't know, it's a difficult one, because I don't necessarily, obviously, I think it was Neil Warnock who said it best, right? Neil Warnock once said, you can never have too many strikers. And I don't disagree with that narrative, not at all, not in the slightest. I will never disagree with that narrative, because at the end of the day, we saw last year, we only had Jerry Yates, didn't we? And it didn't necessarily go to plan. Obviously, you had James Collins for part of the season, Dejan Brown as well, and then obviously towards the end we picked up Kmar Roof, but Roof then ended up getting an injury. Now, he spent 437 days out after knee surgery, which kept him out from the 22nd of October 2023 to the 31st of December 2024. He missed a total of 66 matches. Now, that essentially means he missed over an entire season. He pretty much missed a season and a half, which, it's fair enough. These things happen. Like, injuries happen. It's part and parcel of football. Lars-Jørgen Selvesen had an ACL injury before, about a couple of years before joining Derby. Sondre Langas obviously had his meniscus injury. Craig Forsyth's had a couple of ACLs. And the world right now, when it comes to injuries, is very, very different to what it was back then. Now, the most important thing about this deal for me is he can play a range of positions across that front three, which gives Derby County that versatility, which John Eustace has been talking about for, the best part of the last 3-4 months, where he wants that versatility. He wants to be able to go from a back three to a back four to a back three. He wants to be able to play a front two. He wants to be able to play a front three. Like, there's all these different conversations that you can have in regards to this, and I do believe that he could be a great option. Now, he stands at 1.92 metres tall, which obviously means he is absolutely massive. Now, he only joined Victoria Pleasant back in 2023. That was just before he picked up that ACL injury, which kept him out for over a year and a half. Now, do I think that Derby County will get this deal done? I think it's one that we should keep an eye on, certainly. But I also think it's one that we've got to be very, very careful about keeping an eye on, because do we need it? I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't necessarily think that we're in need of another striker. However, if Selverson was to get injured, if Morris was to get injured, if Ajimang was to get injured, we do leave ourselves a little bit light. Now, over the course of the 2025-26 campaign, he's made 24 appearances, scoring 11 goals, getting 5 yellow cards, playing 1,690 minutes. And obviously, it's a decent return, isn't it, at the end of the day? He played 90 minutes on the 9th of November. Did nothing in that game, and he hasn't scored for his last 3. His last game was against Bohemians, 1905. But it's one of those where he's not really, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about this move. I don't think it's one that makes too much sense for Derby County, especially with the reported fee being £5.7 million. I think if you look at the moves Derby have made during the summer, we've obviously spent a lot of money on Patrick Ajimang, who's a striker, a young striker. You look at the money we spent on Max Johnston, you look at the money we spent on Lewis Travis, Carlton Morris. Like, none of those deals are going to be cheap. Ryan Brewster isn't going to be on a low wage. Andreas Weiman's wage isn't going to be low. Like, there's a lot of money in this club at the moment. Now, do I think that Derby County are going to have money to spend in January? Absolutely. Like, there's going to be money in the pot, and there's probably going to be more players that move on. I think if you look at sort of the situation that we have in that sort of area of midfield for me, where we've only really got 3 bodies, there's going to be an addition in there somewhere. There has to be. So it's one of those for me where I do think Derby County will make moves in January. I just don't necessarily believe this is the one. I don't think it's one which particularly makes sense. If that makes sense, I think it's sort of a situation where if Derby County are going to make this move, with him only having 6 months left on his deal, I don't think we should be spending anywhere near the £5-6 million that's being reported. And I think we'd be very, very silly to go and spend that money. I'm not going to lie. But it's one of those situations for me where I think Derby County are certainly going to have to assess their options. Of course they are. They're going to have to look at what they can do in the forward area. They're going to look at what they can do in midfield, in the back line. And you look at, obviously, the situation with Zetterstrom, where we know there's opportunities for him to potentially move on. But as it stands right now, there's no reason for him to move on, if that makes sense. And there's no great deal on the table, if that makes sense. So we are going to have to sort of wait and see how this progresses over the course of the next few weeks, next few months, however long it takes. But for me, I just don't think this is a move that's going to happen. It's the 20th of November as of time of recording, and as we edge closer to the January transfer window, we're going to get more and more news. Obviously, it was only a couple of days ago that it was reported that Derby County were looking at a deal for Leeds United's youngster, is it Harry Gray? Archie Gray's at Spurs, it's Harry Gray, which we have a video on the channel, so make sure you do go ahead and check that out. But if you haven't done so already, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. This is the Derby Digest, and I'll catch you next time.